The scent of unfamiliar laundry detergent was the first thing Eliza noticed as consciousness slowly returned. The second was that she was definitely not in her own bed. Her eyes flew open to find herself in a modest bedroom she'd never seen before, wearing an oversized t-shirt that wasn't hers. Then the memories of last night's storm came flooding back, along with the realization of whose apartment, and whose shirt, she was in. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're enjoying this story already, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this. Your support means everything, and I promise this tale of unexpected connection is one you won't want to miss. Now, let's dive back into Eliza and Marcus's story. Marcus had always been the quiet one at the office, reliable, hardworking, but somehow invisible despite being the backbone of their department. As Eliza's executive assistant, he anticipated her needs before she voiced them, solved problems before they escalated, and maintained a professional distance that she had never thought to bridge. Until last night, when the storm of the century had left her stranded and desperate, with only Marcus's address in her contacts. The night before had been a blur of panic. Eliza had been driving home from a late meeting when the weather alert blared through her car speakers. Flash flooding had already closed the main roads to her neighborhood, and the rain was coming down in sheets so thick her wipers couldn't keep up. Her luxury sedan, for all its expense, was useless against nature's fury. When her car stalled in rising water just 2 blocks from Marcus's apartment complex, she'd made the call without thinking. His voice, calm and steady amid her panic, had been a lifeline. "Stay there, I'm coming to get you," he'd said, no hesitation in his voice despite the fact that it was nearly midnight and she was his boss, not his friend. Eliza sat up now, clutching the unfamiliar shirt to her chest. Her designer clothes from yesterday were nowhere to be seen. The bedroom was small but thoughtfully arranged, bookshelves lined one wall, filled with well-worn paperbacks. A desk in the corner held a modest laptop and a framed photo she couldn't make out from the bed. It was nothing like her minimalist penthouse apartment with its carefully curated decor and emptiness that echoed her footsteps. The smell of coffee drifted under the door, along with the sound of quiet movement in the kitchen. Eliza took a deep breath and stood up, noticing a pair of sweatpants folded neatly on a chair with a note, "These might be too big, but they're clean. Bathroom is first door on the left if you want to freshen up." His handwriting was neat and precise, just like everything else he did. Eliza slipped on the sweatpants, rolling the waistband several times to keep them from falling off her frame. She caught her reflection in a small mirror on the wall. Her usually perfect hair was a disaster, her face bare of makeup, and the oversized shirt made her look younger, more vulnerable than the polished executive her employees knew. In that moment, she barely recognized herself. And strangely, she didn't mind. When Marcus had waded through knee-deep water to reach her car last night, rain plastering his dark hair to his forehead, she'd seen something in his eyes she'd never noticed before, a quiet strength that had nothing to do with the professional competence she'd always valued in him. He'd opened her car door, helped her gather her belongings, and then simply lifted her into his arms when she'd hesitated at the rushing water. "I've got you," he'd said, his voice barely audible over the storm. And she'd believed him, wrapping her arms around his neck as he carried her through the flood to safety. Now, padding barefoot to his bathroom, Eliza tried to reconcile the Marcus she thought she knew, efficient, somewhat reserved, always professional, with the man who had carried her through a storm without complaint, who had handed her dry clothes and turned away respectfully while she changed, who had insisted she take his bed while he slept on the couch. The bathroom was small but spotlessly clean. Her clothes from yesterday hung over the shower rod, still damp but clearly washed. On the counter sat a new toothbrush still in its packaging, a clean towel, and a sticky note that read, "Help yourself to anything you need." Such a simple gesture, but it brought unexpected tears to Eliza's eyes. When was the last time someone had anticipated her needs without expecting anything in return? After washing her face and brushing her teeth, Eliza gathered her courage and opened the bathroom door. The apartment was small enough that she could see Marcus in the kitchen from the hallway. He stood at the stove, his back to her, wearing jeans and a simple gray t-shirt. Without his usual button-down and tie, he looked different, younger, more relaxed, and undeniably attractive in a way she'd never allowed herself to notice before. "Good morning," she said, her voice coming out softer than intended. Marcus turned, a spatula in hand and a look of genuine warmth in his eyes that made her heart skip. "Morning. How did you sleep?" "Better than I expected, considering." She gestured vaguely, encompassing the storm, her unexpected stay, all of it. "Hungry?" "I'm making pancakes. Nothing fancy, but they're edible." He smiled, and Eliza realized she'd rarely seen him smile at work, a professional nod, yes, but not this open expression that transformed his face. "Starving, actually." She moved closer, drawn to the domesticity of the scene. "Thank you for washing my clothes. And for the shirt. And for coming to get me last night. Anne." "Eliza," he interrupted gently, "you don't need to thank me. Anyone would have done the same." But they both knew that wasn't true. In the 5 years Marcus had worked for her, Eliza had never once considered what his life was like outside the office. She'd never asked about his family, his hobbies, his dreams. She'd been so focused on climbing the corporate ladder that she'd viewed him as a tool for her success, not as a person with a life of his own. "Not anyone," she said quietly. "I don't think I would have done the same." The honesty of her words hung between them as Marcus flipped a pancake. "I think you would have," he said finally. "You just haven't had the chance to find out." Something in his quiet confidence made her want to be the person he seemed to see, someone better, kinder than the driven executive who demanded perfection from everyone, especially herself. Breakfast was surprisingly comfortable. Marcus was easy to talk to outside the constraints of their professional relationship. He told her about growing up in a small town, about his mother who still called every Sunday, about the night classes he was taking to finish his degree. Eliza found herself sharing things too, her fear that she'd sacrificed too much for her career, her loneliness in the big apartment she could barely afford, her uncertainty about what success really meant. "I should probably call a car," she said reluctantly when they'd finished eating. "My phone died last night, and The power's still out in most of the city," Marcus said. "And the roads to your neighborhood are still flooded. I checked while you were sleeping." He hesitated. "You're welcome to stay until things clear up. I know it's not what you're used to, but..." "It's perfect," Eliza said, surprising herself with how much she meant it. "If you're sure I'm not imposing." Marcus's smile was answer enough. They spent the day in a strange bubble outside of time. With no power, they played board games by daylight. Eliza discovered Marcus was unbeatable at Scrabble but terrible at chess. They talked about books they loved, movies that had made them cry, places they dreamed of visiting. When Marcus mentioned he played guitar, Eliza insisted on hearing him play, and was stunned by the beauty of his voice as he sang a song he'd written himself. "Why didn't I know you could do that?" she asked when he finished. Marcus shrugged, setting the guitar aside. "You never asked." The simple truth of his words hit her like a physical blow. How many other things had she missed by never asking, never seeing the people around her as full human beings with talents and dreams of their own? As evening approached, they made dinner together with what Marcus had in his pantry, a simple pasta dish that tasted better than any restaurant meal Eliza could remember. They ate by candlelight, not because they were trying to be romantic, but because the power was still out and the storm still raged outside, though with less fury than the night before. "Tell me something you've never told anyone at work," Eliza said as they washed dishes side by side, her hands deep in soapy water while Marcus dried. He was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. "Then, I applied to transfer to another department last month." Eliza's hands stilled in the water. "You're leaving?" "I was going to tell you once it was approved." He focused on drying a plate with unnecessary attention. "I need to move forward, and there's no room for advancement in my current position. But you're essential to the department. To me." The words came out more desperate than she intended. Marcus set down the dish towel and finally looked at her. That's the problem, Eliza. I don't want to be essential. I want to be seen. The power of his gaze, direct and unguarded, made her breath catch. Had he always looked at her this way when she wasn't paying attention? Or was this new, this connection that seemed to hum in the air between them? I see you now, she whispered. The candlelight cast shadows across his face as he stepped closer. Do you? Instead of answering, Eliza reached up, her hands still damp from the dishwater, and touched his face. Marcus went very still, his eyes never leaving hers as her fingers traced the line of his jaw, learning the texture of his skin, the slight roughness of evening stubble. I should have seen you a long time ago, she said. When he kissed her, it felt like coming home to a place she'd never been before. His hands were gentle in her hair, his lips soft against hers, and Eliza melted into him with a sigh that carried years of loneliness away on its breath. Later, curled together on his couch as the storm finally began to subside, Eliza realized that something fundamental had shifted inside her. The ambition that had driven her for so long seemed hollow compared to the warmth of human connection she'd found in this unexpected shelter. What happens when we go back to work? Marcus asked, his fingers tracing patterns on her arm. I don't know, she admitted. But I know I don't want to go back to the way things were. Not with you, not with anyone. People will talk. Let them. Eliza shifted to look into his eyes. I've spent my whole career worrying about what people think. Maybe it's time to worry about what I think, what I feel. And what do you feel? His voice was steady, but she could feel the rapid beat of his heart where her hand rested on his chest. Like I've been caught in a storm my whole life, and I've finally found shelter. She smiled at the surprise in his eyes. Too cheesy. Just right, he said, pulling her closer. The next morning, the sun broke through the clouds for the first time in days. Eliza woke up still wearing Marcus's shirt, but this time his arm was around her waist, his breath warm against her neck. Outside, the world was beginning to dry out, roads clearing, power returning. Soon they would have to rejoin that world, figure out how to navigate their changed relationship in the context of their professional lives. But for now, in the gentle light of morning, Eliza turned in Marcus's arms and watched him wake, his eyes finding hers with a smile that promised whatever came next, they would face it together. Sometimes it takes a storm to wash away the barriers we build around ourselves. Sometimes we need to be stripped of our carefully constructed identities to discover who we really are, and what truly matters. And sometimes, the shelter we need has been right in front of us all along, just waiting for us to notice. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories that remind us of the power of human connection. Sometimes the most life-changing moments come when we least expect them, in the middle of a storm, wearing someone else's shirt, finally seeing clearly what's been there all along.